Hey guys, and welcome back to another video. In this video, we're going through the Good Friday games, kicking off with Carlton's demolition job over North Melbourne by 82 points. Yes, they won by 13 goals, and they absolutely smoked them in a team-wide effort. So we will jump into that in that review in a second, but before we do, remember to like and subscribe, turn the notification bell on if you're on YouTube, and if you are listening on Spotify, give me a follow and a rating over there. But anyway, let's jump into the video. So North Melbourne against Essendon against the likes of Carlton. Tristan Xerri 116, 144. They said midweek he was training a lot better. It definitely looked like he was back to a semblance of his best. He still got beaten in the ruck contest when the game was sort of there to be won. TDK definitely dominated in the first quarter, kicked a goal on him late in the first, and it felt like TDK was able to get on top, and then Xerri just came back late, had a 37-point last quarter, and then 23 in the third as well. So he was on 56 at halftime, and then had 60 in the second half. So he did do pretty well for Fantasy and SuperCoach, but I think he's still going down in price. I don't know the exact metrics, but I'm pretty sure if you look at his SuperCoach, if you go here, yes, I was looking at Matt Flynn, which we'll get to in 5 or 10 minutes time. But if you go to Xerri here, you will see he ended up Xerri with the 5th highest score for the round, but didn't beat his break even. It's going to go down another, 4 or 5K, you'd think, to 556 or so, 557, somewhere around that margin there. Maybe even a little bit more, actually. Maybe 6 or 7K that he'll actually drop down towards that 555K. And yeah, he hasn't looked his greatest, but he's still averaging 670 over 6 is about 112 for the year, which isn't too bad. But definitely a guy that you can start to consider picking up. He's got Port Adelaide, and then he's got Essendon. So his run definitely starts to open up in the next few weeks if you were to consider going him. But then he has Brisbane, Richmond, Collingwood, West Coast. So this will be an intriguing next little bit. His run definitely does open up post bye, it feels like. But then again, I'm looking at this going, I don't think it does. So I'll have to look into that more detail. But Tristan Xerri is definitely a guy that I think you've seen the dip in cash across both platforms. I don't need to show it again on Fantasy, but both of them he's down. So yeah, definitely a guy that you can consider to trade into now, because he's come back from that hamstring injury, it looks like, and he's starting to train better, starting to play better. 17 hit outs to advantage. Got beaten in the ruck, but the 11 tackles that he had was absolutely huge. They account for 44 points in Fantasy, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was about 35, 40 points in SuperCoach as well. But it was the 17 hit outs to advantage that got him that positive split. Harry Cecil, 91.86. I don't know what they're doing with him. He had 32 touches, 6 tackles. Was probably unlucky with 1 or 2 of the tackle free kicks that he had. Probably should have gone the opposite way, and then that gets him to sort of that around about that 100 score and 195 score, which would have been okay. He's just not in. They're not using him to his strength, it looks like. Even though he's putting up mass disposals, he's not having an impact on the game. 0 marks as well. One of 3 guys or so to not have any marks is quite a worry, I feel like, for the likes of North Melbourne, and they really need to just consider moving him around into a more dominant position, because their midfield is getting smoked, and he's not having too much time in the midfield. If we go to DFS, you'll look at this and you'll say, yep, that midfield rotation just is not looking the greatest. If we go to here, in round 5, he had 72% and he looked great. In round 4 against Sydney, 40%, but he got started off half back. Why in the world are they switching him back to playing half forward? I don't know what they're doing, but it's just not working, and they need to move him about, because he's probably a difference of 20, 30 points if you can get him going early or not. And so, yeah, I am just really concerned that they are basically going backwards, and they don't have a first round pick this year. It's going to go to Richmond, and it's going to be a top, even after all the matching that's going to happen, you'd expect it to be a top 4 pick, which is not looking good, given their injury history is pretty much everyone back. So yeah, they're in dire straits. Jai Simpkins falling back down to earth. Paul Curtis is probably one of the only guys that's actually won his matchup in this game, I would say. Just thinking about it, I don't think anyone else won their matchup in the back. Charlie Convin probably did, but aside from that, no one else won their matchup. And to have 23 guys out there and to say with pretty good confidence that a solid 17, 18 of them lost their matchup is not a good thing for North Melbourne, and they just don't have enough AFL quality players. Caleb Daniel is all right, but when you combine him with Dylan Stevens and also Zach Fisher, as well as Aiden Core in the back line and also Darcy Tucker, you start to get 4 or 5 guys that can't defend. And some of them also don't have good ball use as well. I thought that Caleb Daniel, 2 clangers, 83. 2 clangers also came from the free kicks against. So he was actually pretty good by ball use wise. So I'm not too concerned about him. I'm just concerned that North Melbourne have too many of him, of his type of style or player archetype that don't really help on impacting games. Parker Stevens. Parker just is always going to be a horrific ball user. Stevens, Powell had a decent second half, but his first half was pathetic. LDU signed a massive deal. 25 touches is just, he's not doing enough. 7 clangers as well is pretty bad. 4 clearances isn't the best, isn't the worst. Aiden Core had a horrific game, even though it looks like he had an alright game because he was on Charlie Curnow most of it, and Curnow kicked 4 in a bad effort from him. George Wardlaw, I thought, was probably one of the best players. I should have actually probably included him in the matchups because I don't know who was on him from Carlton. Maybe Cripper was on him, and they probably ran evens, which is a telling stat given Wardlaw was probably the 2nd or 3rd best player for North Melbourne. And then Colby McCutcheon needs time in the twos. He is not a half forward. You need to actually draft half forwards and small forwards rather than trying to trade in dead players from or just delistable players from other clubs, simply put. And then we go down to this part of the list is 90%. Well, there's probably 2 guys here, 2 or 3 guys that are actually like AFL quality at the moment. Luke McDonald, no. Darcy Tucker, no. Nick Larkey had just a really tough matchup against Jacob Wiedering, so that's probably 1 AFL quality player. Jack Darling's probably past it, but he's better than 3/4 of your list. And then you got Cam Zerha. He was pretty poor yesterday, but he will be all right in the future. I think he just needs a better team around him. Zane Dersmer is developing, but isn't probably best 22 at most clubs at the moment. Zach Fisher is an AFL quality. Finn O'Sullivan, just don't play him off halfback. You need to find a better position for him because he just doesn't impact enough. And that's pretty much North Melbourne. And they have no first round pick. They've got 2 seconds though, but they have no first round pick. I think they have 2 seconds, or did they trade another second away as well? George Hewett was outstanding. He continues on, and he's a guy that's probably going to be one that we all miss in SuperCoach and Fantasy just because he's gotten way too pricey. Should have seen this coming. He is an outstanding, just hard-nosed, hard-working footballer, and to think that he was basically being the sub last year or 2 years ago, I think it was, for Carlton, was traded for pick 40 or was let go for pick 40, similar to the sort of James Jordan situation. Just couldn't find a way in the Swans midfields. We probably messed that up. And he's come over and he's finally found his form, and he looks honestly the best sort of run with Kaga type player in the comp at the moment because he's damaging on the other end. 34 touches and a goal with 9 tackles is ridiculously good. Adam Chera got to a 109, 110 somehow. Didn't look like he had his best game, but I guess in a thrashing, you can just sort of do 1 or 2 things and suddenly you're at sort of a 100. Motlop was beating North Melbourne out of the midfield, which is pretty telling, I would say. Charlie Curnow, 90, 105. He just had an off game and still ended up on a 105 in SuperCoach. And then Sammy Walsh, 85, 107. Not his greatest display, but job done. Corey Durden as well had some run in the midfield, and this is an interesting one. I got this question last week, and I want to just look at the CBAs for Carlton and see what is going on, because if I remember correctly, I swear someone said that he was getting CBAs, but it doesn't look like he was getting any. But yeah, definitely interesting. I'd like to see the sort of stoppage stats for him, because he did get a clearance, and I think he had one last week as well. So yeah, definitely a guy I'd need to look in more deeply, because he could be a massive cash generator. But I'm also worried because I did have him 2 or 3 years ago when he was breaking onto the scene and had a couple of sub games and stuff like that. And he can be really, really, he can have that bad game and it just stuffs you over. Cripps, Zach Williams, Young, Cottrell, White. Will White, annoying that we didn't pick him up because he was probably the best pickup this week. He was outstanding, 72, 79, 3 goals. Just didn't expect it. Don't remember what his break even was. But yeah, definitely a guy that we just missed. Will White, let's just see, 99, minus 23 break even. Should have seen that coming, and just missed that flat out. Fogarty, Haynes, DeConing, Wiedering, Holland, Carroll, 52, 64. He will have, I think, a negative 70 or something break even, 60 break even, somewhere around that marker. Not exactly sure, but he should be a good guy to pick up next week from Zach Reed potentially goes, just because his cash gen is stalled after that week, and Essendon's tools look pretty shot at the moment, so he could have a really poor role in the next week or two, as they could get smashed out of the centre with Goldstein back in. But anyway, that is the first game. Then we go to the second game of West Coast versus Essendon. And then we got here. So, West Coast. Matt Flynn, 97-141. Why am I considering this? Maybe, I don't know, maybe it's something to do next week with like a Matt Flynn and a Matt Carroll potentially coming in, something like that, as that'll get you the cash generation, plus also just another guy on field that looks valuable. That would be, you'd need about 360k, I think, which if we just look at this, I think they're about, what is, so 99k plus Flynn, who is 261. No, let me just work this out on a calculator, get a calculator out. 261.9 plus 99.1 equals 361k. So 361k, can I get that from, I could get that from Reed and a rookie quite easily here. I could get Henderson and Zach Reed to Carroll, and also I can't actually do that because I need an extra forward there, but I could get Clay Hall and Zach Reed or something like that to the likes of, oh, I actually can do that because I can shift it back on there. So I probably will be doing Zach Reed and Henderson to Flynn and Carroll, which is quite funny to see that. But anyway, let's back to this game and quickly fly through it. So yeah, Matt Flynn, definitely a guy I'm considering. His cash generation is crazy for the next couple of weeks. I know he probably has tough matchups if we just go to Hewett, who we're going to talk about in a second. How the heck have I fluked that? But yeah, he's got had Essendon, has Hawthorn next week, which is a tough game against Meek. I'd have to look at the stats behind it. But then he has Melbourne, Richmond, St Kilda. That could be an interesting run of games. Waterman was outstanding in the first quarter, then forgot how to play footy almost after that. Jack Williams as well, an outstanding game from him. He looks to be really developing as that ruck, that sort of ruck forward, which is really good that they've got now Williams and Waterman there. And it feels like Flynn has finally sort of shown that he is the number one ruck. It only took bloody 5 rounds, but he is the number one ruck. McGovern, Graham, Baker, Hewett was absolutely outstanding, especially second half. He dragged them back into this game big time. He was on, I think, 20 at halftime, and I was looking like, oh, is he going to hit his break even or something? He was on 13-7, I think, 13 fantasy, 7 SuperCoach halfway through the second quarter. And then he went on an absolute tear. I'm just trying to bring up the last quarter statistics because he was so impactful in the last quarter. 37 points in 61 points in the second half, including 17 touches, 2 goals, and 2 marks. So that was 17 of his 22 touches came in the second half with 2 goals as well. And he also conceded, what did he have? Any one free kick for, 1 free kick against in the third. And then in the fourth, he had 2 free kicks for. So we had 3 free kicks for, 1 against in the second half as well. So he was outstanding. Could have easily probably gotten to a ton there in SuperCoach if he hadn't messed up some of the kicks that he had late. But he's the future of their midfield. He made it look in the second half like he was an actual proper footy player, that he was giving them drive. And I think he also missed a shot on the run as well that if he'd gotten that through, they would have won the game as well, but he would have ended up on like a 115. Tim Kelly, he looked all right, but didn't look outstanding. As I try and make this bigger for you guys there, 63% disposal efficiency. Brian Merrick, I put this in the group chat, and I hope people understand what I mean by it. And not just because I don't have him in SuperCoach or Fantasy, but he is the biggest pig in SuperCoach and Fantasy, but has little to no effect on actually the impact of a game. His defensive work isn't that good at all. Like, he is 2 or 3 times worse a player than like James Sicily is on defense. There was a comparison to that, and if you actually, I think, bring up the stats, I think he'd be more linked closer to like a Nick Blakey style of player, who he can do it on. If Ryan Merritt can start getting these score involvements up and really actually have more damaging kicks than sort of from the goal square and down back, if he can get those kicks from rather than the goal square up another 50-60 meters into the center square, that's when he's going to be starting to be more damaging. It's just when you're kicking it from and just kicking it, booting it 50 meters from your goal square, it isn't as damaging as someone like a Sicily, who has the defensive impacts, and like a Nick Blakey, who can actually really set up a sort of slingshot. Cripps, Harley Reid, I thought they needed to probably just put him in the midfield of that last contest. They really needed just someone, they needed like a midfield of Hewett, Reid, and I don't even know, maybe a Jack Graham, someone like a midfield like that, to just be able to just run straight through the pack with. It was like 30 seconds left. Just run straight through and just hope that you get the clearance and get a kick inside to have a mark for Waterman or Williams or something like that. Liam Ryan, don't know why he played on at that point. And then you had Liam Duggan. I'm surprised he's even getting games, to be honest with you. He just does not look right at this point. Davis, I thought, was outstanding, good in patches, I would say. Always Archer Reed, 42.71. Hutchinson tagged, Merritt to a certain extent, but Merritt got on top in that last quarter and was really somewhat of a game break. It was sort of Merritt versus Hewett in that last quarter. And then Gross came on 11-11. I wish I'd gone Will White, but you live and you learn, I guess. Should have known that he was probably going to be sub after there was some sort of discussion about it. But then also it sort of brings into question what's the point of the sub rule, because a lot of they should go down to 4 in my opinion, and I'll explain that later on in the week as well. When I get more time. Peter Wright, all right. Nick Martin, absolutely huge for those that brought him in. I don't know if his role has changed or not, but that was outstanding. I'd need to look more into that. I just sort of glanced it off and neglected it. Definitely a guy that you should consider in the next week or two to bring in. Setters did all right. Holding back Sardis, who really should get rung from 3 or 4 different clubs that need sort of that winning possession ball getter in that midfield. Sardis is that type of guy. Sam Draper looks to have done an Achilles. When you actually look at the replay, it could have been multiple injuries. It had almost the mechanism of an ACL, but it looks to have been also an Achilles injury from what Scott said post-game in the press conference, which it also did look like that mechanism as well, because he went down in a non-contact injury. Shields, 93, 111. He's been outstanding since he's been sort of returned to that midfield and kept Sardis out of it. Dersma looks like he's cracked a rib. If he, I didn't watch the conference, but just the way he was so hunched over could be an injury there, but we'll wait and see on that. Zach Merritt came alive in the last quarter and had, I think it was something like 8 touches at 100%. So he ended up on a 106, which isn't the worst for a captain, but not exactly what you want. McGrath, Pryor, of course, I put his 92 on the bench, but as I said, probably Zach Reid has to go just because of the break-even. Pryor has a 16 break-even or something. He'll make more cash, whereas Reid's probably cooked. Hobbs, Durham, Roberts, Perkins, Redmond, Ridley, Jones, Kako, Menzie, Reid. Zach Reid, 36-38, wasn't the greatest. Had a hit out to advantage at one point because of the ruckman going down. But yeah, probably will bounce back next week, knowing me. But it's just a guy I think that you probably have to let go now because the break-even's catching up. So a recycle of his cash that he's made like 250k or 300k in fantasy, and he's up to I think 280k in SuperCoach. Let me just check. 220k in SuperCoach. So, yep, an easy sub out there with a 38. Let's just check what he's going to be at. Roughly 260k. Him and Henderson's going to be at 166k. So that is, what's that? Around 260, 160, 420k. So it'll leave me, I think, with roughly about 80k in the bank next week after I do my 2 trades to get Flynn and also Matt Carroll. So yeah, that'll leave me. I won't be upgrading, but I mean, I'll be semi-upgrading, I guess, getting a rookie off field, like getting a rookie off field in the likes of Moraes into a Flynn who could be scoring tons. I feel more safety in Flynn's role than like a Marek, etc., because Flynn's gone and averaged 110 or something like that. And I need to actually double check what did Flynn do in the last quarter, because that could be kind of crucial, just to double check that he didn't go nuts in the last quarter. 25 points in the last quarter, and he had 10 hitouts. I don't know how many were hitouts to advantage, but he had 10 of his 27 in the last quarter. That could be a trap potential, but let's just check if it does hitouts to advantage. I don't think it does. Doesn't do it. So yeah, that kind of is a little bit annoying that it doesn't do hitouts to advantage in the last quarter, because that would be kind of would be good to see that number. But yeah, they dominated the hitouts in the last quarter, 15-4. So yeah, they almost had the chance there. But anyway, Sardar Hooley, because of the sub, even though he'll probably get game time next week if Dersma's out, I expect him not to be the greatest pickup. But anyway, that is the video there. If you did enjoy it, there are other videos up on screen now that you can all watch of SuperCoach and Fantasy, and I'll see you guys back here tomorrow for the Saturday review. Bye guys.